Faces dropped on a new edition of Soccer Down here. It's December 18th. It's a Wednesday. That means it's Wall Pass Wednesday. Some of you guys have already jumped on Wall Pass Wednesday. I like it. We've got some questions in the queue that we'll get to. Pretty much the topics are up to you guys. We can take it in a number of different directions today. It's an interesting day in the world of soccer because we have a Club World Cup semifinal involving Monterrey, involving a team that we have seen here in Atlanta in the past year. They're facing Liverpool. Not exactly an easy challenge for Rayados. It's also a big match in Spain. You might have heard of it, El Clásico, Barcelona-Real Madrid. That's this afternoon. It's a busy time at the moment. So wherever you want to take the questions, we will go there with you. But I wanted to start it today, John, with it's going to be year 25 in Major League Soccer in 2020, and it's also the end of a decade. Bobby Warshaw did a piece over at MLSsoccer.com with his best 11 of the decade. I thought he did a really good job with it. I thought he was pretty clear early on in kind of how he determined it, because, you know, when you get into these teams and these types of things, people will do it different ways. Is it just the best player to set foot in the league based off what they did in their whole career? Is it what they did in the league? Is it how long they were here? You know, all the different things that go into it. I thought he was pretty clear in making his determinations. Let's run through it real quick, because I think with maybe, I don't even know if there's many exceptions here. I think he pretty much nailed it for the 2010s. And some of these players don't get enough credit. Some of them, you know, are maybe just a little underrated. And the other thing I like that he did is he didn't just pick 11 good players. He actually did a team that makes sense. You know, the holding midfielders are appreciated in Bobby Warshaw's team of the decade, which is always a good thing. He's got two of them in there. So I like it. Stephen Fry was his goalkeeper of the decade. 2 MLS Cups, a Supporter Shield, an Open Cup, 3 Canadian championships during his time with Toronto. The runners-up were Nick Rimando and Luis Robles. This is maybe one of the most difficult spots.
You look at Rimando and his body of work. You see what Robles did with Red Bulls, but
neither one won the MLS Cup.
Yeah. And so I've got to go with Fry here. So, yeah, I've got an agreement with Warshaw, number one of his best 11. So he and I agree on the first one out of the blocks.
I might have leaned Robles before Fry got the second MLS Cup, because Robles had 3 Supporter Shields. I might have leaned that way, but that second MLS Cup, along with everything else, Stephen Fry, I'm okay with that. Any of the 3, it would have been hard to argue with, but I'll give the edge to Fry. I'm with Warshaw on this one. Left back, Justin Morrow, a player who really doesn't get enough credit in this league. A player who I think should have had more time with the national team in his prime. He's got an MLS Cup. He's got a couple Supporter Shields. He's got Canadian championships. He's got a best 11. 16th in the league in games won. The runner-up, according to Warshaw's Todd Donovan, who's a solid left back, but Justin Morrow, pretty easy pick. Kamar Lawrence, if he'd been in the league longer, maybe he's in that mix, but he just hasn't been. Morrow's put it down in this league for a long period of time.
Yeah, and when he mentioned Donovan and Kamar for me would have been, if there was a larger sample size that you could have added to, I would have considered Kamar, but no, I've got to go with Morrow here as well.
Yeah, it's got to be Morrow based off the full track record. I mean, Kamar Lawrence came into the league in 2015, so you're only getting about half the decade. It's just not quite enough. Right back, he goes with Steven Beitashour, who played with Morrow in Toronto, was in LAFC most recently. He's got an MLS Cup to his name. He's got 3 Supporter Shields, 3 Canadian championships. Graham Zusi, if he had started the decade as a right back, I would have went with Zusi. But because he played so much on the wing, I'll give it to Beitashour as the true right back. But Graham Zusi, for whatever reason, U.S. men's national team fans really dismiss Graham Zusi very easily.
Yeah.
Great player in my mind, and I think he's made the transition from the midfield to the back line as well as anybody we've seen outside of DeMarcus Beasley. And if you picked Zusi here based off the whole run plus the conversion, I would maybe go that way. But if you want to go who played at right back more and had more of an impact, Beitashour's okay.
And that was what I was going to get into here, is that if you went with complete body of work regardless of position, I think Zusi would have been on the list. But since this is actually based on position by position and not just having 11 guys on a page, I would go Beitashour here over Zusi. But Zusi, if you just had 11 guys, I think Zusi would be there ahead of Beta.
No, if you were having 11 guys, you would go center back. You wouldn't be picking it. You'd pick it like a best 11 where, you don't have necessarily left backs and right backs in it. You just have defenders. Because the center back crop is maybe one of the more competitive ones here. You would have left both out. You might have left Morrow out too if you were just going defenders as a group and picking center backs, because this is where I had maybe the most difficulty in deciding on two. Warshaw went with Chad Marshall and Omar Gonzalez. Marshall, he lists him as 1.5 MLS Cups. I think that's fair. Doesn't get full credit for this most recent one. Defender of the year, 2 best 11s. Omar Gonzalez, you forget because he did move to Mexico, but 3 MLS Cups at the beginning of the decade, 2 Supporter Shields, a Defender of the Year, 4 times in the best 11. All of those trophies put Gonzalez here. I really want to make the argument for Matt Beasler because he's got an MLS Cup and he's been maybe one of the steadiest center backs in the league since coming in. That's a lot of hardware for Omar Gonzalez, though, so I can't really argue it too hard, but in my list, I might go Marshall and Beasler.
Okay, because I had Gonzalez and Marshall here as well. Once again, with Beasler almost, all right, so which one would I have pulled in this situation? But no, I think for me, this is safe. I'll go with Omar and Chad and continue to agree with Bobby.
All right, midfield. He goes with Diego Chara, Osvaldo Alonso, Diego Valeri. So 2 holding, 1 attacking midfielder. Okay. Osvaldo Alonso, yeah, he's got to be there. Just an incredible decade for him. He had an MLS Cup. He had a Supporter Shield, 3 Open Cup wins, a best 11. He won the most games in the decade. Ozzy Alonso, absolutely cool with that one. Diego Chara is right there, too. I think at times we overlook a player like Chara because he's not grabbing a whole bunch of goals. He's not grabbing a bunch of assists. He's just that freaking good in the middle of the field and lets others do their thing. If you're going to go 2 holding midfielders here, those are the 2. Kyle Beckerman would be really, really close. Really close. And if RSL had gotten their MLS Cup win in 2013 that they lost on penalties, or if they had gotten that CONCACAF win where they lost in the final to Monterrey, Beckerman would be ahead of Chara for me, I think. Dax McCarty, really, really good, not quite ahead of Chara or Alonso. Beckerman is the closest one that pains me to not have him there, but I'll put Chara because of the MLS Cup win ahead of Kyle Beckerman. The number 10 role, he gives it to Valeri. He mentioned in his preamble that Miguel Almiron, 2 years, it's really hard to put him ahead of that, and I'll agree with that. Valeri's got more games, 229 games. I don't think you can put Almiron ahead of him. One person I might put ahead of Valeri, and it's difficult. There's 2, actually. Federico Higuain and Nico Ladero are the 2 who are just so close here to making it. I would probably go Ladero ahead of Valeri. I think he's had a little bit more of an impact, and when he's not there, Seattle suffers more than when Valeri's not there in Portland. It's really close. You could flip a coin. The coin might come up on its side and go with Higuain. I think all three have been outstanding. I'm going to give it to Ladero, and I will go with Alonso and Chara, and Kyle Beckerman is like trying to kick Diego Chara to get into the team.
I was going to ask about Nico Ladero, considering his body of work, and you compare it to Valeri. That was my one question in this run. I agreed with Chara and Alonso, but once again, Beckerman in the hardware department, not necessarily matching Chara and Alonso, but Ladero for me instead of Valeri. That was the one I was staring at.
Yeah, I'm going Ladero over Valeri, but it's super close, and on certain days I might go Higuain. Now, the one thing, and he has Brad Davis down as one of his runners-up, playing the setup that he has done to pick this team, he's not having a winger like Brad Davis fit into it. Brad Davis is an outstanding player in MLS history and a guy who deserves all of the love that he can get in this league. But in this type of setup, if you're picking a team in the way that Warshaw has set it up, he doesn't fit, and he's not going to knock out one of your forwards that you're going to go with a front line of three in this way. So Brad Davis has to be on the bench. The forwards, and this is where it gets really difficult. Chris Wondolowski, no-brainer. I mean, all the goals he scored, he has to be there. There's just no other way around it. Warshaw goes with Robbie Keane, who up until very, very recently was the best designated player ever in the league because of what he did in 92 goals in 146 games, 51 assists as well, 3 MLS Cups, 4 times in the best 11, an MVP, a Supporter Shield. Incredible. Sebastian Giovinco is going to be in this mix as well. Not as many goals, a few more assists, not as many games, only 1 MLS Cup, 1 Supporter Shield, 3 times in the best 11, 1 MVP. Now, your runners-up, if you go with this, Joseph Martinez, 3 years, but more goals than Giovinco in 3 seasons. Not quite as many as Robbie Keane, but really close in 3 seasons. And he's got an MVP, and he's got an MLS Cup, and he's got an Open Cup. Ooh, it's tough. Landon Donovan, who missed kind of the second half of the decade. I think it's right for him to be on the outside looking in with this group. Bradley Wright Phillips is right there. And I think if he had an MLS Cup, he would be maybe there over Giovinco. Maybe. But without an MLS Cup, do the 3 Supporter Shields equal what Giovinco did? Oh, it's close. Thierry Henry, I don't put on the list. I not ahead of anybody we've mentioned so far. It's just not quite there. Kai Kamara, I would put ahead of that with the amount of goals he scored, 115. David Villa had a very good run with New York City, but didn't get to a conference final. Wondolowski, Giovinco, and Keane. Wondolowski, no question to me.
Yeah.
Keane, no question to me. 3 MLS Cups. Yep. I'm not arguing it.
Yep.
Giovinco is the one that could really argue when it comes to Joseph.
Yep.
It's not an easy one to say because you've got more time with Giovinco in the league. But, man, what Joseph has done, it might sneak him in there for me. For a team of the decade, only playing 3 years.
And that reinforces what Joseph has done in a very short period of time. Wando, for me, no-brainer. Keane, for me, no-brainer. Comparing Joseph and Giovinco was the one for me. I had Joseph getting in just because of the body of work in a very short period of time and what Atlanta United has done. It's not Atlanta United's fault that they weren't around for the entire decade. So in a short period of time.
But it's an all-decade team. It's not about fault. It's about what you did over a decade. And when you only have 3 years of the decade, Giovinco only had 4. Now, that's the thing, is we're comparing 3 years to 4. And Giovinco in 114 matches in regular season play, 68 goals, 52 assists. Joseph in regular season play 83 matches, 77 goals, only 11 assists. And that's one you could point to. Both with an MLS Cup, both with an MVP. Giovinco has a supporter shield. Joseph has an Open Cup, Ana Campeones Cup. Best 11, Joseph had 2. Giovinco had 3. It's really close.
I was going to ask if I put Joseph in here instead of Giovinco if I was going to be regarded as crazy.
No, you're not. It's really, really close. I think in terms of a decade team, Giovinco getting it is fine. And the assists is going to be what gets it for him. I mean, when you look at years he had, like 2015, first year in the league, 22 goals, 16 assists. Second year, 17 goals, 15 assists. It's tough to argue. It's really tough to argue with numbers like that. He added in playoffs 5 goals and 5 assists. You had playoff play for Joseph. You're adding another 5 goals and 1 assist. I'm trying not to be biased here.
Yeah.
But in a decade team, 4 years, over 3, I'm okay with Giovinco getting there instead of Joseph.
Okay. Well, then I'll go Joseph instead of Giovinco.
Okay. Just to be different.
Yes, just to be different.
All right. Fair enough. Kai Kamara is really close as well. Bradley Wright Phillips is the one who maybe I feel the worst about leaving out. It's really hard to leave him out with 117 goals. That's a lot.
So then what's the rest of your 18? If we're looking at best 11, what's the rest of your 18?
Well, then you're starting to go with, okay, if you're going to go with a bench, because we're thinking about this as a real team. So Beasler is there for sure. Beckerman is there for sure. Joseph and Bradley Wright Phillips are there for sure for me. Backup goalkeeper, I'll lean to Raimondo. Just because he had the whole decade. Robles, now I'm going to go Raimondo. I'm a Nick Raimondo stan. So that's 16. I got 2 more spots. Let's see. I'm going to go with, since I put Ladero in, I'm going to go with Valeri. And I'll go ahead and add more firepower in Higuain.
Manager. He's got Bruce Arena.
Bruce Arena won 3 MLS Cups and 2 supporter shields. Man, it's hard to argue with that. It's really, really hard to argue with that. Siggy didn't get an MLS Cup in the decade, so I don't think he can be there. Schmetzer only had the 4 years, and that doesn't trump what Arena did. Now, Arena didn't have the whole decade, but pretty freaking close. Peter Vermes is right there. He won 4 trophies. He did get 1 MLS Cup. I think because of accomplishments, you have to give it to Arena, but if you're looking at the quality of the work that they put in, Vermes. So if we're thinking about this like an all-star team based off what the people did, like and what they won, what they accomplished, I'll go Bruce Arena. But if you ask me who I would pick to manage my team and let them build a team from scratch, I'm going to pick Peter Vermes.
Yeah. Okay.
And either way, you're good either way. But Bruce Arena for a team of the decade, 3 MLS Cups and 2 supporter shields. I can't put him anywhere but on the touchline for this.
Okay. Yeah, I had Arena there as well. So it looks like overall you're looking at the 11. I think I disagree with Warshaw once in the Joseph Giovinco variant.
Yeah,
so,
I'll go Ladero instead of Valeri. That's the main one that I'll disagree. The one that I'm probably the closest to is Beckerman instead of Chara. But I'll go with Chara. I'm okay with that.
Okay.
So that's it's really good work because it's hard to do this, and I like the way that Warshaw did it. in the sense that it's not just 11 great players. It is set up like a team, and that's the way you have to do it to make sure that outside backs are recognized in the same way. Holding midfielders are recognized in the same way. The only thing you would want to do is maybe have a section for wingers if you opt to play a 4-2-3-1 or 4-4-2 with wingers, and Brad Davis would probably force his way into that. But really good piece. Now, the reason I wanted to touch on this is I think what things will probably start to transition once we get into January. It'll be less about the last decade. It'll be more about the first 25 years of the league. And that's going to be a different conversation. That's going to change the narrative a little bit. And what got me thinking about it was the horrendous, absolutely horrendous graphic that BR Football put out. So they did this tweet yesterday because yesterday was the anniversary of the day in 1993 that MLS was formed. And the content, the copy is, they've seen some legends of the game. And yeah, MLS has. And you've got in their MLS jerseys Schweinsteiger, Kaká, Drogba, Ashley Cole, Frank Lampard, Robbie Keane, Andrea Pirlo, Wayne Rooney, Thierry Henry, David Villa, Zlatan, Beckham, Vela. Okay. I mean, the thing says legends of the game. It's not saying best players in league history. However, there were legends in this league before 2007. Just saying. The league started in 1996. Carlos Valderrama would like to have a word with BR Football,
yes,
and backhand them repeatedly. Marco Echeverri would like to kick somebody in the kneecap. Legends of the game. No, they're not European legends, but they are legends of the game. Jaime Moreno would like to kick some people as well. One of the greatest players ever from Bolivia and one of the greatest players ever in this league. And, oh, yeah, there were a lot of, U.S. men's national team legends, and yes, they are legends that played in this league. Like, pretty much everybody who's a legend for the U.S. men's national team since the 1994 World Cup played in this league. And they count. They count a whole lot more than a Wayne Rooney who spent a year and a half here, a Frank Lampard who spent a year and a half here. Come on. It's silly to put this. And then if you want to go legends of the game, if we're even going there, let's take issue with that. Okay, so we've talked about Valderrama, Echeverri, Moreno needing to kick some people. You have Carlos Vela here, Luis Hernandez from Mexico, Jorge Campos from Mexico, Carlos Hermosillo from Mexico, all would like to kick some things. And, oh, yeah, this guy, Cuauhtemoc Blanco.
Mm-hmm.
He even played in the same time frame as these guys. You probably have a picture you could put up if you're BR Football. And you go with Vela instead, who, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Vela is more of a legend of the game than Cuauhtemoc Blanco. He did play in Europe after all. So I guess that seals it. It's just ridiculous. Like, this could have been done so much better on so many different levels. However you wanted to take it. If you just wanted to say world legends of the game who played, 3-4 different people should have been on this list, on this graphic. You want to take legends of the league, legends of American soccer? Okay, you might want to put that in there too, because last time I checked, Bleacher Report and BR Football is based in the United States, where the league is, and oh yeah, Canada's involved too. There are Canadian legends who've played in the league as well. So, just saying, come on, BR Football. This is ridiculous.
Any omission of Cuauhtemoc Blanco, usually in a situation like this, I know that is a firing up point.
I just don't get why you put Vela over Blanco if you're going to put Vela in there, because that's the one that, all right, legends of the game. You've got a lot of legends of the game here. I mean, legends, Does Robbie Keane get onto a Legends list over a Steven Gerrard? I mean, are we talking Legends? Or are we talking about performance in the league? What are we talking about? Because, is Robbie Keane a bigger name worldwide as a legend of the game than Steven Gerrard? I don't think so. But you're also leaving out South America. And we've talked about this so many times. When you look at worldwide ratings, you look at ratings in the United States, you look at things, when you leave out the Spanish-speaking element to it, you are missing at least half of the conversation, of the audience. And you have Vela here. Now, you have David Villa from Spain, but you don't have Carlos Valderrama. You don't have Cuauhtemoc Blanco. You don't have Jorge Campos. I'm sorry, where I'm from, those are legends. Those are flat-out legends.
Is Zlatan a legend?
Yeah. Why would he not be?
Well, I mean, I was just specifically thinking of his time in MLS as the application.
You've got Wayne Rooney in here who played less than Zlatan in MLS. So, and both are legends of the game. I mean, the tweet says they've seen some legends of the game. They didn't say these are the legends of MLS. Okay, that's fine. Zlatan's a legend. He played in this league. Cool. Rooney did too. Steven Gerrard did. He's not here. But the biggest omission for me, you have Kaká here too. Sorry, another South American. But the biggest omission is, or the biggest confusion is Vela in it. Campos, Blanco, Luis Hernandez, Hermosillo, Rafa Marquez. Not in it as a legend from Mexico. And then no Carlos Valderrama, and then no Marco Echeverri or Jaime Moreno or legends from, other countries in this hemisphere, and no American legends either. I guess they don't count either. So it's just really misguided. They could have done so much better with it, and they didn't. So
not the first time. Sadly.
Not the first time. What?
That they've tried to do something that they thought was clever or appropriate, and it ended up going over like the proverbial lead balloon.
But this is the thing, John. Did it go over like a proverbial lead balloon? Did to us.
Yeah.
But did it go over to their audience as a lead balloon? I don't know. I don't know if it did. And that's something that I hope the league looks at that and says, you know what, man, this is what people think of when they think of the league. We've got some stories to tell going into year 25, and we've got some things that we need to make sure that people do know. I would love to see some behind the scenes, some oral histories of how you convinced Carlos Valderrama to sign with Major League Soccer. And about his time in the league. Marco Echeverri, what was the selling point for him? How you got Jaime Moreno midway through your first year and he turned into one of the all-time greatest players in the league's history. The Jorge Campos stuff is actually pretty funny. There is a little bit of stuff out there on that one. He was promised, I believe, a Lamborghini as part of his contract. I can't remember if it was a Lamborghini or a Porsche or I want to say it was a Lambo. And he was promised it as part of his contract, and it was the way they could, I guess, convince him to come, because Campos was playing in the U.S. and in Mexico at this point. Like, he'd finish the MLS season, he'd go play for a club in Mexico. I think he spent some time with Cruz Azul and with Pumas, and then he'd come back. I mean, he was playing nonstop year-round. It was nuts. But that was part of the deal to get him. And after the Galaxy's first match, where they kept having to remove tarps at the Rose Bowl because people kept coming in, Campos was like, yeah, where's my car? Those people came because of me, so where's my car? And they had to go get him his car because he earned his car with 69,000 people showing up at the Rose Bowl for the first game in LA Galaxy history. Stories like that. Fun stuff like that those are the stories that need to be told, because I want people, when they think about the legends of the game who've played in MLS, to not miss out on a Campos, on a Valderrama, on these kinds of guys. And I want the league to just grab this narrative of legends and the first 25 years of the league and turn it on its head and inform some people about the legends of this league and the legendary stories and teams and managers and goalkeepers and holding midfielders and strikers and all of it, and tell the history better. So we're not getting silly graphics like this with Carlos Vela as the Mexican representative when there's at least 3 other players who played in this league that I think should be ahead of him in terms of legendary status.
442 has the details on Campos in the car.
Was it a Lambo?
Ferrari.
Ah, it was a Ferrari. That's what it was.
Here's the quick version.
Yeah.
MLS business guru Mark Abbott's duty to make it happen. Quote, I called up Beverly Hills Ferrari and said, I've been asked to buy a Ferrari on behalf of Jorge Campos. I've never bought a Ferrari. I need to do some research about it. They said, you don't need to do research. We tell you the price and you pay it.
Mm-hmm.
And so trying to negotiate, they're like, you seem like a nice guy, so this is what I'm prepared to do. I'm going to throw in the AM/FM radio for free. And Campos actually got 2 cars for signing with the league.
There you go. That's what it took at the very beginning. It was absolute chaos. Tell us those stories, MLS. This is what I'm going to ask from Major League Soccer between now and opening day 2020. The person you need to get sitting down in a chair and make sure he's got all the coffee and tea and anything he needs to sit down for probably a 4-hour conversation is Sunil Gulati. Because it was Sunil Gulati who was basically like the league general manager from 94 or so when they first started actually figuring out who they were going to sign until, I want to say 97, when teams started to take more ownership over it. It was Gulati who went out and, made these signings happen and had to have these negotiations. Sit him down, and we need stories about convincing Tab Ramos to sign with the league. He was the first player to sign with the league. Convincing, your Lawlesses, your Winaldas, your Harkses to come back, Miola coming into the league, those guys. But then your Echeverries, your Valderramas, the Campos story. I'm sure there's plenty more to the Jorge Campos story than that. I mean, the guy got 2 cars out of signing with the league. We needed these stories. Make it happen. Convince Sunil, however you have to convince him outside of buying him a Ferrari, and get him in a chair to talk about some of this, because these are the types of tales we need at this point going into year 25 of the league. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to come back, and we're going to dig into the Wall Pass Wednesday timeline ahead of Mike Conti joining us at 10 o'clock. Hang out with us. We'll be right back.
Looking for future leaders we can trust and believe in? Look no further than the high school student athletes right here in Georgia. High school sports teach young people how to be effective leaders. It begins by making their grades and being on time for practice. It includes learning to listen, following directions, accepting responsibility, being a good role model. And it's about respect for officials, opponents, the rules, and each other. The result? It transcends sports. It gives us hope for the future. High school sports. There's so much more than just a game. This message presented by the Georgia High School Association and the Georgia Athletic Directors Association.
Today's show is presented by Appolinsky & Associates, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience, supporters of Atlanta United, Faction, and Inter-Atlanta Youth Football Club. If you've been hurt in a wreck, contact Steve today at steve@aa-legal.com or call in 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
We know that every driver is different, and a one-size policy does not fit all. That's why Country Financial offers a variety of discounts, so you get the coverage you need and the savings you deserve. From good driver to good student, multi-policy to multi-car, we've got a discount to suit every driver. Call Jason Wright at 678-568-6871 today to see what you could save. On Facebook at Jason Wright Agency or by phone at 678-568-6871. Discounts vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Country Preferred Insurance Company, or Country Casualty Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Welcome back. Soccer Down here. December 18th. Wall Pass Wednesday. We're going to get into the timeline here in just a second. Wanted to remind you guys about Prize Picks. MyPrizePicks.com has been a little busy since we last checked in at the end of the MLS season. They have added multiple leagues for you to jump in on the soccer front. Remember, the way Prize Picks works, you're picking a player. You are picking if they go over or under a total. It is mostly based off goals. Goals are 5 points. Assists are 3. Shots are a point. Shots on goal are a point. Yellows are a -1, and reds are a -3. And the player has to start the game for that pick to be active. The other thing they've added, too, since we checked in last, is they've added the flex option on picks. So if you pick 4 picks in your Prize Picks entry, and if you hit all 4, you do really, really well. If you're kind of like, I got one that I'm not so sure on, I don't know, you can do the flex pick where you'll make less money if you hit on all 4, but you'll get a good return if you hit on 3 of the 4. And you can do that with 3 and 4 pick plays. So myprizepicks.com, Prize Picks app on Android and iOS. Use the code SDH when you sign up because you will get 25% of your initial deposit matched up to $1,000. You will get a free $25 two-pick play, a free roll to test it out. And it's just the easiest way to do it. The payouts are quick. It's all super simple. They offer all kinds of different specials from time to time. Make sure you're following them at Prize Picks on social media because they will drop out different giveaways, different free plays, different things that are out there, all kinds of contests. MyPrizePicks.com. Today on the board, you have Lionel Messi at 13 points in El Clasico. You have Luis Suarez at 10.5 points. You have Karim Benzema at 11. And you have Toni Kroos at 4. Okay, go over to the Bundesliga. You've got Robert Lewandowski, who's seemed to score in every game he's ever played in 2019, at 13 as Bayern plays Freiburg. You've got Serge Gnabry at 8. And then over in Italy, you've got Cristiano Ronaldo at 12 points against Sampdoria. Man. I'm really tempted to go the over on Lewandowski because he's been insane.
Crazy.
But how long can he be crazy? He's been crazy for a long time, so it's kind of hard to say no.
The under on Messi?
Yeah, the El Clasico ones scare me. I kind of feel like that might be a little tight. So I'm tempted to go over on Lewandowski, under on Messi, and under on Benzema. Those are the 3 that grab my attention. And remember, with Prize Picks, you can also combine that with NBA, with NHL, when football's in session, you can combine it with NFL stuff. You've got golf that's in there. You've got tennis. You've got MMA. You've got esports. All kinds of different things pop up in my Prize Picks. So,
how many times will Patrick Reed cheat during a round of golf?
No, that's not how it works, John. It's points. You don't get points for cheating. Points. It's not a prop bet situation. But if the points on cheating in a round of golf was 3, I would take the over. Anyway, let's get to the timeline on Twitter at Soccer Down here.
Yes. We are having folks giving names for the derby between Charlotte and Atlanta. Chandler Creel is saying the Chicken Biscuit Derby is the obvious choice.
I'm not against that. I'm not against that at all. I mean,
I still think there ought to be a belt. You ought to have a championship belt.
See, that's the idea that I love, is because a lot of these, you get a trophy, you get a cup, that's how the soccer derbies are going for the most part. You have the Cascadia Cup, you have these things. Let's do a wrestling belt.
And have Ric Flair present it.
Sure. Cool, I'm in. I think Tepper would be in on it. David Tepper was talking like a wrestling heel yesterday. I love it. Some people got a little bit out of shape about it. I love it. I mean,
bring it.
It's outlandish. It's cool. Bring it. It's fine. But yeah, a wrestling belt is what should be handed back and forth between the supporters groups that are involved in this. That's the way I see it. And then it's presented to the team when they win the series. That's the way I would go with this. A wrestling belt, it just makes too much sense with
10 pounds
Atlanta
of gold,
and
brother.
Georgia Championship Wrestling's history, with the rich history in Charlotte. You've got somebody like Ric Flair that you can tie into the whole thing. Yep. Wrestling belt, please make it happen. If you put a chicken biscuit representation on the wrestling belt, I don't care, but a wrestling belt that goes back and forth between either the supporters or the teams or whatever, done. Let's do this.
And the presentation has to include putting the belt on a particular representative from each team at the end of the season, or at the end of the rivalry.
Well, no, see, that's different, because that's not really as much of a big deal anymore. I mean, it used to be this big thing about actually putting the belt around their waist, but now it's just kind of like, you hand it over and guys will go up and, hold it over their shoulder like The Rock and all that. So, or guys will come down like Bubba Ray Dudley with it, tied around their neck. So, we're not going to say that, but it's handed over and then they can celebrate however they want to celebrate. I mean, if you do it in the bins and you give it to Gressel or Joseph, and they go running over in front of the supporters and stand up on the ledge in front of them and hold it up, or go running up into the capo stand and hold it up, cool. Whatever. But a wrestling belt needs to be involved in this.
Michael Head, couple of thoughts.
Okay.
One, eventually, one of these expansion teams is not going to pan out. Nashville has only sold 5,000 season tickets.
Hold up. There was an interview with Ian Ayre, I think, at Sports Illustrated, Planet Football. And he said, yeah, that number's not accurate. It's not, and the reason why I believe that is he didn't say, oh, well, it's 25,000. He said it's 6,100 and it's been picking up, and that they expected it to pick up as they got closer to the season. So it's not entirely accurate. It's not exactly where you'd love to be, but let's not be looking for the sky to fall either. And I think that's a very bad tendency of American soccer, is that we are constantly looking for the other shoe to drop and looking for bad things, and we don't want to accept that good things are there. Nashville's got some work to do. They do. It's got to be better. They've also had a bunch of hiccups with the politics in Nashville, and they've got the complication that we've talked about. I think it's harder for a team to do what Nashville did, because they did it in the only way that has been done that way, where they were announced as an MLS team, but they did USL temporarily. Like, they weren't a USL team that grew into an MLS team. They started a USL team to bridge the gap. And that's complicated messaging. Would they have been better to not do a USL team, to just wait to launch an MLS and build the anticipation, and maybe instead of doing the MLS or the USL team, doing an academy or doing a USL League 2 team or something like that? Maybe so, in hindsight, because this is a tough road. It's one thing if you're an independent USL team and you grow into being an MLS team, but to do what Nashville's done, I think that has been a complicated story to tell, along with the politics, along with the stadium stuff. I do think they'll overcome it, but it set them back. Because
you're looking at, the casual fan probably is confused a little bit, sitting there saying, okay, well, you were in this league and I was, looking at you here, and now you're going to this other league and things are going to change, and budgeting is going to have to change for my family if we're going to get involved in these kinds of things. So, I mean,
Maybe.
I can understand the confusion. I can understand confusion of transitioning from one idea to the next.
Yeah, that's where I'm at. I don't think it's about budgeting or any of that. That doesn't really fit, because that would be more of a team that's already there that you've been bought in on. It's the fact that the story when you launch the USL team is, hey, we're going to have an MLS team in a couple of years. I could see a bunch of people saying, well, I'm just going to wait. And now, instead of just ramping up and having excitement over a name and a logo and all the little milestones along the way, it's been kind of muddied because you've had a team. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think it's about the prices are going to be more in MLS. That's something that everybody has talked about. I remember that conversation here. It's like, oh, well, I'm not going to support MLS because it's going to be so much more expensive and this and that. If it's a major league product, it's a major league product, and people are going to spend the money for it if they think they're going to get their money's worth. And I think in Nashville, the complication has been that you launched with a product at one level, but you had another one that you were going to launch, and people don't get how that fits and how that works. And now you're at a point where it's just, okay, the previous team, forget the previous team. Now it's time about going into MLS, and, you're building a slower build there. They didn't go with a big splash. They didn't have a huge base to build from initially anyway, where they didn't need to go with a big splash. They're going to be building their stadium, and they say it's still, on point for a 2022 launch. I think it's going to be hard to judge Nashville until we get there. The problem that you worry about is how much damage are you going to do in the meantime with people saying this exactly, like looking at it and say, oh, 5,000 season tickets or 6,000 season tickets, and they're only averaging 17,000 for this game. That's terrible. When it's in actuality, it's not. But it's not what Atlanta did. It's not what it looks like Charlotte will do. It's not what we're hearing about season ticket deposits in Austin. It's not going to be what others do. It might not be bad, and it might be slower. But how much damage are you going to do in the meantime when all that noise gets going about, oh, it's bad, it's bad, it's bad, it's bad? That's the scary part for Nashville that they're going to have to manage.
Michael also is asking, yeah, no doubt. Michael's also asking, lots of anti-Atlanta statements from Charlotte yesterday. Why just be you? Don't demean other teams.
Oh, I could care less. No, bring it. I mean, that was what grabbed headlines. That wasn't the only thing they were saying yesterday. They said a lot of stuff, but that grabbed the headlines, and that's why it was said. I mean, flat out. They also, I mean, and this is where headlines can get you in trouble. They did not say as much anti-Atlanta stuff as you might think. They said, and this is Tom Glick, the president of the Carolina Panthers, and the one you would expect to be leading this initiative from building it. He said about Atlanta, that's certainly the standard we're shooting for. If we can reach that, then we're going to see how we can go past it. That's saying a lot because they've done an incredible job. And he said, talking about Atlanta United, he said, they've been great with us in terms of sharing insights and advice in our process and making sure this club is going to work in the Carolinas. We're convinced that it will, but they've opened their doors to help us understand what they did. We'll continue to lean on them as well as other clubs around Major League Soccer to make sure we're grabbing the fundamentals while making sure to create something original for Charlotte. So don't just buy into the headlines about David Tepper saying, screw that other city, we're the hot city. That's just a great line. That's just a fun line. They've been very respectful of what Atlanta United's done. Again, rivalries are good. And if this is where they want to go to create some buzz day one, cool. I mean, and this would be my question for Michael, and I don't know if there's a correct answer here, but Nashville is where they are, in my opinion, because there's not a lot of buzz at the moment.
Right.
You're moving a USL team up that you launched specifically to fill the gap in between the announcement to this. You don't have a big name player that's grabbing your attention. You haven't had a big crazy move. You've had maybe negative stuff in the media about the stadium and the fight about the fairgrounds and the politics with the previous mayor. So you haven't had buzz. Charlotte, you got some buzz, and part of it is those quotes from Tepper, having fun with, screw them, yeah. So which is it? Because I'm okay with the buzz. Because it's not disrespectful. It's not any of that. It feels like a wrestling promo.
Yeah, exactly. You're cutting a promo and ginning up an instant rivalry. Yeah. I mean, I got that.
And that's what I took out of it. I think the supporters grabbed onto it, and cool. If they want to say different things and do that, it gives them something to rally around. Good. That's what you need to sell a bunch of tickets and get a bunch of excitement going. So I'm okay with that. I think it's fine. And look, it's Atlanta United's, it's to their benefit for Charlotte to be successful. Just like for Portland and Seattle, it's to the benefit of the other group being successful. I think what you're going to see, because Nashville hasn't come in with any kind of attitude like this, and it's felt a little flat. Charlotte has. Atlanta came in with attitude against Orlando, and there were fans. There was a lot of fan stuff before, and we've hashed it and rehashed it on the show before. It's not mystery or anything between different supporters groups, but Darren buying a billboard in Orlando before the first trip down there. That type of stuff is what the new kid on the block comes in and does. But you have to embrace it on both sides because it's good overall. When you have edge to a game, when you have this type of rivalry animosity, it's good. I've seen so many people start no, it's not a rivalry. No, our rivals is no, it's not a rival. No. Why are we fighting this stuff? Don't be
why not
about it. Just let it be what it is, and it's going to be down to the supporters anyway. It's going to be down to the feeling in the building. It's not for people to try to define in this way. There's not some checklist about, well, this happened and this happened, and okay, now it qualifies as a semi-rivalry. It is not a full rivalry yet. Just let it be. Have fun. You don't like them, you don't like them. You like them, you like them. It's all good.
Michael also says, unless something changes, East teams will only play 8 West teams in 2021 and even less in 2022. So much for my planned return trips to LAFC and Portland. No, Please don't schedule like the SEC football go-to divisions.
They're not. I think something's going to change. I don't think they're going to go down that road. I think they're far more likely to go divisions within the conferences. I think you're going to need to. The thing that's interesting, though, that did come out of Charlotte yesterday is Don Garber maybe, and this has been really confusing to follow. Like, you'll see one set of quotes and you'll see one headline about, we're going to 30 and that's it. And then you'll see the next one's like, we're going to 32. And then you say, well, we're considering it. Well, it might be this much. Well, we don't know. And yesterday it was Garber, and I don't know if it's quotes being taken out of context or they don't know or he's not being clear enough. But yesterday it was pretty clear that they're not thinking about 31 and 32 right now at all. He said something about this being the last announcement or the last announcement for a while or something. So if that's the case, and 30 is going to be the number for a while, now you know what it is. You know the roadmap to get there. Now you can create over the next 2 years what that looks like to get there and what it looks like from a conference and a scheduling perspective. I think you've got to go to 3 conferences and or 4 divisions, 2 conferences. I think you've got to do one or the other to make it work and see more teams in the league. I don't think it'll be Michael's fear of not seeing teams on a regular basis. I don't think that'll happen.
John Nason says he's guessing this means Nashville's in the West for 2 years now then. He's interested to hear our thoughts on if MLS expansion's done for now, on the right track and still moving, or out of control. His worry is dollars over common sense will dilute the product.
No, I disagree with that. I completely disagree with that. I don't think there's anything about dollars over common sense when it comes to Charlotte and what they're doing. The dollars are very important. I mean, I think it's unfair to say that they're not. You have to have it. You have to have it to be able to be successful in this league, because we can't say that you don't want teams to come in and are going to spend a lot of money because, look, if you're going to spend a large expansion fee to come in the league, you've got the wherewithal to spend money on your team, and then you've got the motivation to do it. If it's cheap to come into the league, then you might say, well, I'm just going to sit back and just let my investment appreciate, and I'm good. I don't have to worry about it. If the product sucks, the product sucks. Because we're all clamoring for the teams to spend more money, which is starting to happen now. So you've got to have owners who come in who can hit that certain bar of paying to come in, diluting the ownership of MLS, diluting the overall share, all that type of stuff. So I don't think they've chased just dollars in any of these situations. Nashville had a huge buzz and earned the spot, and I do think they'll be successful. I don't think Nashville will be a club like Atlanta United in terms of the way they spend and what they can do, but that doesn't mean they can't be successful. I feel like they can be a club like a Sporting Kansas City, like a Dallas, and grow a culture in a part of the country that, look, hasn't had it. I think Charlotte has an owner who is going to be very aggressive, as we've seen, an owner who is very well-resourced, and they're going to come in and be very bold. And in a part of the country that you might not have thought that would be the case. I think a lot of people nationally thought the exact same thing about Atlanta. Go back and read some of the comments in 15 and 16. Not at the initial announcement where you got your basic, like, oh, soccer in the South is stupid. Not that nonsense. But the takes about, oh, Arthur Blank's going to be like Robert Kraft. Oh, they're not going to spend, or they're not going to care. They're not going to be very good. They're not going to take it seriously. Go back and read that stuff, because that is being recycled, and it's going to be brought back up about Charlotte. Because that's what the national narrative, if you don't know Charlotte, would say. I don't think that's going to be the case. From what we've seen with Tepper, I don't think he's going to be happy owning a team if they're not very good. So Austin, the moves that Anthony Precourt has made in Austin are pretty strong so far. So I don't really have a lot of fear about that. It's another market where you don't have any major league teams just yet. It's a market that is emerging and growing. Makes sense. And that was a different one. That wasn't a traditional expansion decision anyway. St. Louis, everybody's wanted St. Louis in the league, and I think they finally got the ownership that was right to do it. And Sacramento was another one that's built a product, built a club. They had to get the finances right to be able to do this, and they finally did. I don't think any of those are a reach. I mean, I guess, and a lot of it is based off the way it's built up, I guess out of all of those, because Austin's a different conversation, Nashville might be the biggest reach. Because Miami was a no-brainer. You needed to be in Miami. We've covered that, and it's also, again, another complicated expansion process that is not traditional. So that one, I think it's silly to say that you shouldn't be in Miami. Has it been difficult? Yeah. And that's a different conversation. But the idea of being in Miami is a good idea. Nashville's probably the one that's the biggest risk. And I think they're going to get it right in the long run. I just think it's going to be a different type of run to get it right. We'll get into that. I want to take that question over through the break, and we'll talk to Mike Conti about that one and pick his brain a little bit. I'm bullish on it. I don't know if Mike is as bullish on it, and I want to get his thoughts on Charlotte as well now that that's official. So we're going to take a quick break, get Mike Conti on the line. We'll be right back after this.
A ranger station.
I'd like to report a bear hug.
Okay.
I put out my campfire, and Smokey Bear hugged me.
So you drowned the fire, you stirred it, drowned it again, and felt that it was cold?
Uh-huh.
Yep, he's just letting you know you did good.
Bear hug from Smokey Bear. Status update.
I'm gonna let you go now. There are many ways to start a fire, but one sure way to put it out. Learn how you can do your part at SmokeyBear.com.
Sponsored by the U.S. Forest Service, Ad Council, and your state forester.
As a business owner, you know that every year brings new challenges and opportunities. The success of your business demands expertise and focus. And Country Financial can help you keep that focus by helping ensure you have the right insurance protection in place to meet your goals. Jason Wright can help you create a customized insurance plan that has coverages designed just for your business. Give Jason a call at 678-568-6871 or reach him on Facebook at Jason Wright Agency. Coverages vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
This is what matters. This is beyond X's and O's. This is the difference mutual respect makes. This is what character looks like. This is what defines us in Georgia. This is sportsmanship. School sports. It's not the outcome that matters most, but the way the games are played. This message presented by the Georgia High School Association and the Georgia Athletic Directors Association.
If you've been hurt in a car wreck, contact my friend Steve Apolinski of Apolinski and Associates. He's been representing individuals for over 30 years throughout Georgia and Alabama. Email him at steve@aa-legal.com or call him 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
You're listening to Soccer Down Here daily on SDH Networks, a division of OSG Sports. Find us at Soccer Down Here on Facebook and Twitter. The time is now the top of the hour. Peep, y'all.
Welcome back. Hour number 2, Soccer Down Here. John is recounting his stories about trying not to electrocute himself to death this weekend
Correct.
at the GHSA Finals, and filling in our guest, Mike Conti, who is back from New York.
I don't know what was more horrific, John evading electrocution and watch the Hawks get blown out by 30 by the Knicks last night. I think John might get the slight edge.
Yeah, that was a bad one last night. Oh.
Horrible. Really horrible. And then, Lloyd Pierce wasn't happy, so he had a 1-hour team meeting afterwards. So, we got in so late. We didn't get into Atlanta until about 3 in the morning because of all that. So you get whooped by the Knicks, and then you get whooped by the clock, and here we are this morning. But it's all good. I'm glad to be able to talk to you guys. It's been a while.
Yeah. Let's talk about Charlotte. Let's talk about David Tepper saying, we're the hot city, screw that other city. What'd you think about that?
Hey, no, I like it.
I did too.
That's okay. That's okay. I don't really think anyone was truly offended by that because you know that David Tepper's tongue is firmly in his cheek. David Tepper wouldn't be doing what he's doing now if he didn't look a couple 100 miles down I-85 and see the success that Arthur has had with Atlanta United. And I'm sure David Tepper, if pressed on that, would admit to that. So, look, these are the types of owners we need to have in the game. Deep-pocketed owners who have aspirations of fielding big clubs, who look at this as more of less of a occupant in their stadium that will occupy 17 dates a year and more of a long-term commitment to growing the game in this country and in their regional markets. I think this is a total home run all around. We're at 30 teams now, and I think we could have a completely different debate as to whether or not that's too much too fast. Charlotte is being incredibly ambitious, trying to get up and running in time for the 2021 season. They're doing this without a USL infrastructure, so they're going to have to move very, very quickly to get up and running, and I'll be curious to see how they do that. But no, these are the types of owners that we want in this league. And if he wants to talk a little smack to Atlanta, that's fine. This is going to be a rivalry. This is going to be a derby game.
Oh, don't say that bad word. People get upset about rivalry.
Well, you know what? It is what it is. And Orlando, sorry, don't let the door hit you on the way out. You're not going to be in the rivalry picture much longer with Atlanta United.
No.
Yeah, but it's true. It's true. It really is true. I mean, you're going to have strong regional connections with, quite frankly, I think the chance for some split allegiances in that I-85 corridor.
Yeah. That's a definite. I think we're already hearing about some
very,
of that.
very important for I think the Greenville-Spartanburg market from an outreach standpoint becomes incredibly important for both Atlanta United and the new Charlotte team. And, I don't know how that will necessarily be approached or conquered, but you don't have split allegiances with Atlanta and Orlando, okay? It's not like you go to Jacksonville and half the city is wearing 5 striped scarves and the other half's wearing purple scarves. That doesn't exist. That is going to exist in many parts of the southeastern United States, and I think to a lesser extent with Nashville too. But I get the sense that Nashville is going to be more of a fraternal, polite rivalry, kind of like with what Atlanta United could potentially develop with Cincinnati, I feel like Charlotte has the opportunity to be a knife in the teeth rivalry. And that's good because Joseph might need more children. You know, he might want more children. I don't know.
He's interested in the larger family, perhaps?
Yeah, I mean, look, you get to the point where, you know, you do a very good job nursing an infant into toddlerhood and then, you know, a little bit further, and people might, you know, want to start all over again with a new child, and that's totally fine. And that might be where Joseph is right now.
When it comes to, and this is the discussion that we had in hour number one, we were debating what to do for this derby, and we figured that you have to have 10 pounds of gold as the representative. You've got to have a wrestling belt for this with Charlotte.
Yeah, I mean, there is no doubt about it that professional wrestling and the roots of that medium run very deep in both these cities. I saw a suggestion, I think it was on Reddit, about a Chick-fil-A versus Bojangles derby. I think that's very fair as well because those are two foodstuffs that we really, really embrace. But look, the thing is, this is going to come naturally, okay? I know we're kind of having fun with the topic, but I really hope that this doesn't become, you know, I'll give you an example. When Penn State joined the Big Ten in 1993, the conference wanted to create rivalries. So they made up two trophies, one that Penn State would play for against Minnesota, the other against Michigan State. And here we are now 25 years later, and no one cares about these trophies because it was a plastic manufactured rivalry and an element to that rivalry. And I don't want to see anything manufactured here. I want to see it come naturally.
And that's different. Like, that's something people have accused the Atlanta-Orlando rivalry of being plastic.
No.
It's one thing to put like a plastic trophy on something and say, no, you're going to be rivals. It's another for the club's president to go buy a billboard in the other city.
Yeah.
Like, that's creating something that is different than saying, no, you're going to be a rivalry. Here is a trophy that we bought at the store for you.
Yeah, no, yeah, exactly. And I think, I mean, without getting into it too much, I think there were other things that occurred in the fostering of the Atlanta-Orlando rivalry that were outside the purview of both clubs. Yep. So, yeah, no, I absolutely. I don't think of Atlanta-Orlando in that way in the least. And I don't think Charlotte-Atlanta will evolve in the same way. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. It's just going to be a sprint for Charlotte. I mean, it's going to be a total sprint. I don't know if they've had people in place for a while kind of working as a shadow organization to get this thing up and running quickly, but I think the next few, not months, weeks, are going to be fascinating for Charlotte to see who they hire as, you know, a technical director, a head coach, a team president, maybe a sporting director, director of soccer operations, because this is going to have to move very, very quickly.
Yeah, they've said that they've already identified a lot of this stuff. It's an interesting balance when you compare Nashville and Charlotte. And Nashville, you know, did the USL thing first, although it was always in mind to being MLS. So it was a little complicated for them. Like, that wasn't even the Cincinnati story or the Minnesota story about building a lower division team into an MLS team. Charlotte is much closer to Atlanta with an accelerated timeline, or, you know, an LAFC with an accelerated timeline, where they're able to start from scratch. And there's good and bad from that. They don't have any baggage, though. And Tepper's, I think, resources will help them bridge that gap a little bit.
Yeah, I agree. This is something we talked about with Kevin Egan a couple weeks ago. I think sometimes it's more advantageous to start in the position that Tepper is starting from, where you don't feel like you have to be necessarily loyal to your USL infrastructure. I think Cincinnati made some mistakes when they were loyal to USL coaches and players who were not MLS coaches and players. And I think that put them in a position where they were kind of climbing out of the deep hole because they didn't want to abandon the people that built their USL club into such a successful club. I think the LAFC, Miami, Charlotte approach might be a little bit better because you're looking at it from a clean slate. You can build your organization with MLS people or people from other top leagues around the world. And Nashville's really kind of an anomaly, aren't they? Because they got the MLS expansion team and then they created a USL team. Am I remembering that correctly?
Yeah, they're the only ones that have done it that way, and I think it's made it more difficult for them. Yeah,
absolutely. I think they're making a lot of they're having to make a lot of the same difficult decisions that they made in Cincinnati. And I think what Atlanta United and LAFC have proven, and what I expect Inter Miami will prove this year, is that you don't have to climb the ladder slowly when you're an MLS expansion team. You can compete immediately. And if you hire the right people and spend the right amount of money, you can be right there right away. I'm sure David Tepper has noticed what has happened in Atlanta and in Los Angeles. And I think that's going to be the approach. I mean, the guy is unbelievably wealthy, incredibly wealthy. We think of Arthur Blank as wealthy. David Tepper is in the same boat, if not in a bigger boat. So if he has the right people helping him, I think Charlotte's going to be very competitive very quickly.
Then the question, Mike, is everyone is hearing Don Garber sitting there saying, okay, well, this might be the last one of these kinds of things. But he's also revised and extended his remarks on multiple occasions when it comes to the number of teams in MLS. So is 32 obviously an eventuality, obviously not something that's going to happen overnight, but I think that if people still knock on your door and want to hand you a mid-9-figure check to be a part of your group, how can you turn that down?
That's it. And that's the reason why Garber is not slamming the door on more. Because, I mean, was it 325 or 350? I've seen two different numbers. But, I mean, well over 300 that Tepper paid as an expansion fee. If there's someone in Las Vegas who has a $350 million check for Don Garber, he's not going to say no to it because MLS has too many teams. I don't think there is an active plan to go to 32 right now. And I think there would be some significant drawbacks to making that big leap to 32 unless you're doing it with financially stable owners who have ambition and want to do this the right way. But Garber has got to keep that door open because we have heard reports that there are people in Las Vegas who have experience running professional sports teams that have that kind of money who are interested. This Charlotte thing might put a little more pressure on Raleigh. It sounds like, reading between the lines of what Don Garber has been saying, that the Raleigh expansion bid was not quite as far along as maybe we all perceived.
Right.
Well, maybe this creates a little more of an acceleration now, a little more of a motivation. And I don't think, if they add two more teams, I don't think it would be done with any geographic constraints in mind. I think they would just be looking for a cash infusion that could amount to another $700 million if you put two more teams in. You're not going to get that kind of money through TV rights. You're just not. You're talking about NFL-style TV money when you get to that point. So if this league is really looking for a huge infusion of cash immediately, granting expansion franchises is the easiest way to do it. There would be drawbacks from the competition standpoint, but you can't say no to that kind of money.
Yeah, and I think in this sport, the drawbacks are completely different because it's not where you're talking about, let's look at baseball, basketball, hockey, American football. How many teams outside of what you have in our top leagues, how many teams in each of those sports do you think you could legitimately stock and be competitive out of players who are not in those leagues? Not many.
Not many.
You know, but in MLS, it's a worldwide market. You can
exactly
as
right.
we've seen, you can build a team that's good tomorrow, like easily. So
well, and then let's take that a step further, Jason. So let's say, just for the sake of talk, Garber picks up the phone today and gets a call from Las Vegas and a call from Phoenix, and there are people on the line who say, we have $350 million to give you right now. So you take $700 million plus the $300 million that Tepper gave you, and all of a sudden now MLS has $1 billion with which to play on the international market to find players. You mean to tell me you can't find 75 players around the world for $1 billion, high-quality players?
Easily.
You absolutely can. Absolutely can. So I'm with you. American football would be completely unrealistic to stock a roster from players who are not currently in the league. I think it's a little bit different in baseball. I think it's becoming a little bit different in basketball. It's certainly much different in hockey. And the Vegas Golden Knights are a pretty good example of how hockey is kind of in the same international marketplace as MLS right now. But yeah, I mean, you infuse $1 billion of capital into this league for owners to go out and scout and find players from around the world, and you've got this. You're absolutely going to be able to find 75 to 100 players to fill out rosters, high-quality players that will make the league a better competitive product.
Yeah, our Greenville correspondent asked about this, Chris Ashley. When you get into some of the back and forth that MLS has put out there about, we're going to keep expanding, we're not going to expand. Garber yesterday, was very clear in saying this will likely be our last announcement. I think it's smart because it puts the pressure on a Vegas or a Phoenix or whoever is out there and says, I want in, because Garber can say,
right.
No, we're good. We don't need you to come in right now. But how much are you going to cut a check for?
Exactly.
$500 million? Oh,
yep.
Well, money talks.
100% right, Jason. 100% right. Don Garber's a smart guy, and Dan Quartermach is a very smart guy, and he's the one who tells Garber what to say. That's kind of a joke, but kind of not.
He helps him craft his words.
Listen, MLS did not grow rapidly into the powerhouse that it is right now because not very smart people are running it. You've got exceptionally smart people who are very savvy and well versed in the political game of how you massage all of this. And Don Garber's got it exactly right. I'm glad he's our commissioner. I got to be honest with you. I mean, look, I think, again, there are legitimate, valid questions about, is this too much too soon? Is the quality of the product going to be acceptable this quickly? I think these are all valid questions. But, again, in the not very long term, these are moves that are going to make the league better.
When you look at, let's see, we could keep talking about expansion, but I haven't had the chance to catch up with you since Brooks Lennon was signed.
Yeah.
So wanted to know what you thought about Lennon being in the fold for more than just a season.
Yeah, good signing. Solid. Versatile. Will probably help this club in a couple different spots. Reminds me of Mo Adams in that way. Where because he's versatile, because he can play in the midfield, he can play on the back line, he's going to have a chance to play a lot of games. And Atlanta United is going to play a ton of games, being in Champions League and hopefully making another deep U.S. Open Cup run this year. So that's the kind of player you need right now on this team. Is he going to be a superstar in this team? I don't know, but I think he's going to be given a good opportunity to be a better player with this group. And again, I think it speaks to something that we've speculated for a while now, that Atlanta United is a destination. Players want to come play here right now, and why not? And Brooks Lennon is one of them. Thought the contract extension was interesting, but Brooks Lennon is a guy that Darren and Carlos have been high on for a very long time. So, or at least for the last year, according to reports. So maybe we shouldn't be surprised by it. But I think it's a good, savvy signing. I think, again, his versatility is the key. And I look forward to seeing how quickly he assimilates and adapts once training camp opens in a couple weeks, and how quickly he'll be able to build chemistry with whoever's left. I think it's a good signing. And I like having another American-born player on this team, too. I think you're losing a very strong American-born voice in Michael Parkhurst, and here's another American-born player who's going to be here for a while. I think that's a really good, important thing. You want to have American voices in that clubhouse and American players who can represent you in the community. And Brooks Lennon might even, I'm not thrilled with the idea of another Atlanta United player going to play for Greg Berhalter and the U.S. men's national team, but that is an honor, and it's an honor for the club when it happens. And I think Brooks Lennon will.
It's great.
Right. Yes. When you actually play.
Yeah. And when you're not doing
get to play
hard training sessions
game.
after games, after sitting in the cold.
Right.
But, anyway.
Yeah, don't get me started. Greg Berhalter is getting coal in the stocking. I'll tell you what. I don't know what we're going to do on stoppage time today, but, if we're doing the naughty or nice list for the holidays, Greg Berhalter is absolutely on the top.
3GB.
Yeah,
Naughty.
I really hold him not directly accountable, but right at the top of the list of people that ruined Atlanta United's playoff run this year. I still cannot wrap my head around that 2 months later. It's a disgrace. And, I'm an American and I want the U.S. men's national team to do well, but there's a small sliver of me that really roots against him because of that debacle.
And that wasn't the only debacle when it came to player injuries. There have been others that have come out around that time. So, anyway, let's move over to CONCACAF Champions League because we haven't talked about the draw that.
Boy, we haven't talked in a while, have we?
I know.
Well, a lot has happened in the last 10 days, though. That's the thing.
Well, that's the funny thing. The CONCACAF draw was last Monday. That maybe it's because I've been, in a billion different cities with the Hawks lately. It just feels like that was a month ago to me, but it really was relatively recent. And let's talk about it. It's
go
exciting.
To Honduras first with Motagua, and then. The one that everybody who wants to have black helicopters flying around them and wear tinfoil hats said would happen. Atlanta and Club America potentially in the quarterfinal.
I love it. I love it. If it's a conspiracy, it's a conspiracy that I'm very happy to be a part of.
Yes.
I
Frozen
think
envelopes, brother.
The one thing that I think I enjoyed the most about Atlanta United's 2019 season, guys, was Atlanta United's ability to play on an international stage against clubs that are not in MLS. And, the Club America match was right at the top for me of my favorite matches of the year. It had everything. It had drama. It had atmosphere. It was a well-played match. It went right down to the final whistle. Basically, it was just an enormously entertaining, fun night. The leg series that they played against Monterrey, where Atlanta United really got a good barometer, a good measuring stick against the best team in CONCACAF this year. And I think, really rose to the challenge. I know 3-0 losing at the Estadio BBVA Boncomer was not fun. But Atlanta United was pretty even with them for 80 minutes, and then Atlanta United outplayed them at the Benz. I love seeing that. I loved having the experience of going down to Herediano. All three of us were there, and what a memorable night that was. I'll never forget that. So, if 2018, the legacy of that season was winning the MLS Cup and being champions and taking that giant leap forward, 2019 to me is what I'm going to remember most as being the season where Atlanta United got to start proving itself on the international stage. So fast forward now to 2020. If you get through Motagua, you have a chance to play in the Azteca. Really think about that. Atlanta United is going to play in the Azteca if they beat Motagua. Who could not be pumped up for that? Who could not be thrilled?
I don't like to look ahead. I don't like to look ahead. But
how could you not in this case? How could you not? And all due respect to Motagua. And I think Atlanta United is going to have their hands full with Motagua as they did against Herediano.
It's different. Motagua's different. Honduran teams are different. The difference is going to be Motagua is not Olympia. Olympia was the one I did not want to see because they're in a really good run of form right now in Honduras, winning titles. Motagua was third. But you're talking about a different type of physicality. You're talking about a different type of dark arts, gamesmanship, whatever you want to call it. you're talking about knife between the teeth and in both hands and maybe being thrown at you as well. It's going to be a different level of fight than you see from an Herediano, which is not quite happy to be there, but different mindset. Motagua, it's going to be a fight. It's going to be a very intense series.
Yeah. But again, I think Atlanta United is better positioned going into
completely
this series against Motagua than they were going into the Herediano series last year. You've got the continuity now with your coaching staff. You've got roster continuity. Look, I know it's been a little controversial. I like denying Barco the call-up to Olympic qualifying. I like that move. Some people will probably disagree. But from a club standpoint, that's what you've got to do. That's the message to me that this club is going all in on CONCACAF this year. I think last year CONCACAF was seen as not necessarily a burden, but just something that was in the way in the run-up to a new MLS season where you're defending an MLS Cup. Now, without the pressure of defending that title and with the continuity of having a coach for the second year and the continuity of having Pizzi Martinez with this group for a second year, it's going to be a totally different approach where I think CONCACAF is going to be very much embraced. And this opportunity, not that it wasn't taken seriously last year, but it just goes up a whole new level this year. And again, you don't want to look ahead, but the opportunity to play at the Azteca in the first week of March is a huge incentive. It's a huge incentive. I mean, I don't think Joseph Martinez has ever played at the Azteca before. Has Venezuela ever played a friendly against Mexico there?
Not there.
At least recently. Not there. So, I mean, imagine for all these Atlanta United, like Joseph Martinez having an opportunity to play at the Azteca, the home of 2 World Cup finals, one of the most famous soccer stadiums in the world, in a competitive match. Not a friendly, not a full international in the months leading up to a World Cup. None of that. A competitive, real match in front of 80,000 people. It's going to be an amazing opportunity. And I'm sure Atlanta United and their players are really, really excited about that, provided they get past Motagua.
Then you look at the other MLS sides that are involved in this, and you see NYCFC with all of their holes right now in administration, and they let Tati Castellanos go and play, and we talked to Felipe Cardenas about that yesterday. And then you have LAFC, who's going to be in it for the first time. You've got Montreal out of Pot 1, and there are a couple of different teams that are in far worse situations than Atlanta United going into CONCACAF Champions League in the opening round.
No question. Excuse me, no question about it. I think the other intriguing element of all of this is that Atlanta United and LAFC are on the same side of the bracket. What if Atlanta United actually gets by Motagua and gets by Club America? You could be looking down the road at playing LAFC in legs, which would be really, really interesting. And that'd be a giant step forward for MLS, by the way. They have an MLS on MLS matchup in the semifinal, but we're a long way away from that. I'm going to be honest, John. I have not really studied the CONCACAF bracket too much outside of what Atlanta United has right now, and I apologize for that. I've been kind of bogged down in Hawks. But, I think like last year, what you're hoping for is that all the MLS clubs get through the first round. You don't want to see an Independiente of Panama redo with Toronto or anything like that. You want to see the MLS clubs do their job and get out of the first round and then let the chips fall where they may.
It's going to be exciting. The thing that's grabbed my attention the most as we wrap up is you're getting Lucas Cavallini moving from Liga MX to Vancouver.
Yeah.
There's talk about Zelarayan from Tigres going to Columbus in a potentially $8-9 million deal. You've got Alan Pulido coming into this league. You've got not just your Atlantas and your LAs, and we expect Miami to start spending big money, but Kansas City,
yes,
Vancouver, Columbus dropping big money.
Yeah, I was just going to mention SKC. I mean, SKC is doing things at multiples higher than anything they've ever done before in a transfer market. Multiples higher. Columbus, Vancouver. I mean, not clubs that we consider to be big clubs in this league. Good clubs. SKC is a good club. Columbus is a good club. They've won titles, but we don't consider them to be the big clubs. I think the gauntlet's been thrown down by, let's just say, Atlanta United and LAFC, and to a lesser extent, Toronto,
Seattle,
New York City,
Toronto,
Seattle. I mean, the gauntlet's been thrown down, and this is why I'm optimistic about the next CBA, guys, because some of the clubs and the owners that we have perceived as being a little more frugal, a little bit more cautious and conservative with their money have made some big statements lately that, hey, we're going out, we're playing to win, and we're spending big bucks. And that's why I think there's the potential that the CBA could be wrapped up in a pretty favorable fashion for all sides, because I don't get the perception that there's a group of owners in this league anymore that's trying to hold this league back.
No, I don't know who they are at this point, because you're getting teams step up that we have not seen step up in this regard.
The one that everyone always says, oh, he's the cheap owner who's ruining the league, is Robert Kraft. We've got to stop that right now, too, because Robert Kraft just built a beautiful new training ground for New England Revolution and brought in Bruce Arena and started deleting football lines during football season. You can't even say it about Bob Kraft anymore.
No, it looks like he's about to go add another designated player as well.
Exactly. So the tide has changed. And I'm just so optimistic going into the new year for MLS and where this league is going, because just in the last couple weeks, maybe even in the last week singular, we have really seen signs that we have owners in this league that really care about growing the game and not just avoiding taking a loss in the balance sheet. And that's so good to see.
It's exciting, and it's only going to continue to grow, and we'll be talking about it this afternoon on Stoppage Time.
Yeah, last one of the year, 2 p.m. And glad to talk to you guys again, and thanks for bearing with me with all my Hawk scoopiness. But, it's what we do this time of year, I guess. But looking forward to seeing you this afternoon.
See you later, Mike. Thanks.
All right, guys.
Be good.
We're going to take a quick break. We've got a bunch of Wall Pass Wednesday topics to get to on the Twitters. We'll do that right after this.
Looking for future leaders we can trust and believe in? Look no further than the high school student athletes right here in Georgia. High school sports teach young people how to be effective leaders. It begins by making their grades and being on time for practice. It includes learning to listen, following directions, accepting responsibility, being a good role model. And it's about respect for officials, opponents, the rules, and each other. The result? It transcends sports. It gives us hope for the future. High school sports. There's so much more than just a game. This message presented by the Georgia High School Association and the Georgia Athletic Directors Association.
Today's show is presented by Appolinsky & Associates, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience, supporters of Atlanta United, Faction, and Inter-Atlanta Youth Football Club. If you've been hurt in a wreck, contact Steve today at steve@aa-legal.com or call in 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
We know that every driver is different, and a one-size policy does not fit all. That's why Country Financial offers a variety of discounts, so you get the coverage you need and the savings you deserve. From good driver to good student, multi-policy to multi-car, we've got a discount to suit every driver. Call Jason Wright at 678-568-6871 today to see what you could save. On Facebook at Jason Wright Agency or by phone at 678-568-6871. Discounts vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Country Preferred Insurance Company, or Country Casualty Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Welcome back. Wall Pass Wednesday time on Soccer Down here. Tweet your questions wherever they may come from. Whatever topic you might want us to address, send them to us on Twitter at Soccer Down here. A lot of Charlotte Atlanta talk.
Mm-hmm.
That's been the most interesting thing about this is the Charlotte addition to the league has gotten people going, maybe more so than anything else. It's pretty exciting. I mean, and yeah, I think in our footprint especially, we're getting a lot of crossover, and we will, and that's going to be a fun thing to see as well. But a lot of Charlotte-Atlanta talk so far.
Accurate. Katie Weaver, Charlotte thoughts. A, glad to have another team drivable and in the Carolinas. B, love the Mint City Collective colors, but the name sounds like an artisanal handmade goods co-op. C, got a good name yet for the Tri-City Southern Cup. Nashville, Atlanta. Sorry, Orlando. Hashtag Wild Pass Wednesday.
Yeah, I was going to ask Mike if you know the thought now that Orlando might be left out of the rivalry sweepstakes. I don't think that's the case. I think that's still going to have drama to it and difficulty with those matches because teams just don't like each other. But is there a bit of a concern that Orlando, at least from their perspective, has turned into Vanderbilt? If you're going to compare it to the SEC, you know, it's just not as big of a game anymore because you have these new teams come in. I don't know. We'll have to see how it plays out. But Nashville's been interesting because you haven't gotten anything out of Nashville like you got out of David Tepper yesterday and like you got out of supporters groups from Charlotte yesterday about animosity towards Atlanta or wanting to stick it to Atlanta or any of that type of stuff. So you haven't gotten any of that out of Nashville. Not a good or a bad thing. It's just
different.
It
what they're doing right now.
It doesn't feel like anything. It feels like a fun road trip, which is not what a rivalry is. So we'll see when that changes, if that changes. Right now, like I don't know if there is a Tri-City thing because I don't know if Nashville really cares to be part of it because nobody said anything about it. So I don't know. Maybe it doesn't happen that way. Maybe it's just Atlanta and Charlotte want to slap each other around on a regular basis, and Atlanta and Nashville just like to go to the other city. I have no idea.
Emery Russell, not related to today's topics, but do you see a USL League One or USL Championship team thriving in Athens? To me, I think it could be a huge success with townies and students alike. Having been a student in Athens, I would have loved a local to support in addition to Atlanta. The only issue I see is having an owner in the Athens area to front the money and infrastructure. Hashtag Wild Pass Wednesday.
Not USL Championship, but League One, yeah. League Two, it would be a no-brainer. I'm a little surprised. I know there had been some rumblings at different points over the last few years about an NPSL team in Athens, but nothing ever came together. And it comes down to the ownership. I mean, you've got different places you could play. You've got things you can make work there. It's the owner, and it's the right owner to be able to make it work. I do think Athens, with League One, if you have an owner with that type of wherewithal to be able to compete with Greenville and Chattanooga and Tormenta, it's a no-brainer. It's a no-brainer. It would make a lot of sense. And you build out the region, and that was always the approach from League One, and always the idea was to build it out regionally and not have a lot of travel at the League One level. And Athens would be a great fit, and it'd be a great potential partner for a lot of different teams. So it would totally make sense. I think it's just the right owner to come in and say they want to spend the money to try to make it a viable business.
Katie Weaver this morning also, she says, TBH, I'm already salty with a BR about their UCL coverage and paywalls. This dumb MLS graphic doesn't help.
Yeah. They have not made friends with the American soccer community very well at all, and that's not good, but that is what it is.
And the Colonel has come in with an idea. He wants to call it the Hot City Belt.
I don't want anything attached to like Hotlanta though. So
no,
that's just no part of that. If you call it from Hotlanta, you're not from here. You don't know any better. You get to bless your heart because nobody
bless
calls
your heart.
It that.
Correct. Developing story out of Charleston with the Battery. Taylor Mueller is saying goodbye to the Battery after 8 seasons in Charleston.
It happens. Be curious to see where he ends up. And that's probably the question. being there for so long, being the captain for so long, I'm a little surprised. But if he has an offer to move up, then it's a no-brainer. If he has an offer that is going to be more lucrative, which is always a possibility as USL Championship budgets continue to grow, I can't fault him for that. I think it's a lot of where he ends up next, and that's what we're waiting to see. But, he's been a rock for the Battery, and the Battery's new badge, which is awesome, and new move. It feels like a new day for the Charleston Battery. So, to move on and rebuild in a different way, it's kind of the right time for that. Just want to see how they do it. I want to see where Mueller ends up.
Michael Ruiz with some excellent questions. 1, how can we watch El Clasico today?
BN Sports.
And for those that do not have cable television that is attached to BN Sports, Thanatis, I believe, yeah?
Thanatis has it. Fubo TV has it. I don't know the other streaming services that would have it. But BN Sports, for sure, is where you're going to watch El Clasico.
How can we watch Monterrey and Liverpool?
FS2 or Fox Deportes. Or you could go to the Brewhouse Cafe and watch all of it in the same place.
9,412 TVs, and they will both of those matches will be on at the Brewhouse.
Both of the TVs will be on?
Both of the matches on all 9,412 TVs.
Those aren't the only matches. Like, you've got, as we talked about with Prize Picks, you've got games in Germany, you've got games in Italy, you've got, is it FA Cup today with Manchester City and Manchester United both involved, playing lower division teams. So it's either FA Cup or League Cup, Carabao Cup, Gummy Bear Cup, whatever it is.
I think it's Gummy Bear Cup, and that's on the Plus.
Yeah, it's on the Plus, but you've got other games. So if you want to watch all of that, I know the Brewhouse is running some specials, and you can watch every single bit of all of it. And maybe if things go the way that I would love for them to go, and sorry, Liverpool fans, if Monterrey has a big day today, you can point and laugh at Sakib, but he might throw something at you, and he'd probably be warranted to do so.
Yeah. Third question from Michael. Charlotte has... Yeah. There you go. They ain't afraid of nobody. They've said that the entire time while wandering over there. Third question. Charlotte has 7,000 season ticket deposits. According to my friend in Charlotte, said it's double the initial Atlanta United total after day one. Any word on if that's accurate?
No clue. And yay. I mean, it's a deposit. Like, it's cool. It's exciting. Like, it's not a bad thing, but is it more than what Atlanta did in 2014? I'd hope it would be. I don't think that's that's good. They should be able to do more at this point. It's going to be about converting them to sales, as everybody pointed out about Atlanta was, oh, yeah, that doesn't mean anything until they sell the tickets. Which is true. It's accurate. So if that's the case, that's great. I know it was at 1,000 like an hour or two after the announcement. So if they've got to 7,000, that's great. I've always thought Charlotte would do really well. And now it's what they do in this short run-up to put the product on the field. I think the support will be there. I really do.
Also on the board, Eric Engler says it's safe to say Atlanta versus Charlotte is a rivalry and not a derby, ? Or maybe the other way. I, for one, am excited to have so many Southern teams to battle. Makes the away games much easier to attend and therefore more intense naturally.
Yes, and that's the case. And I think it would be the other way, depending on how you want to judge these things. If it is a derby, I mean, technically, I think if you ask an Englishman, they would tell you that it's two teams in the same city. So that's not quite the case. The only derbies in MLS would be in Los Angeles and New York. I think in the United States, if it's drivable in a day, if it's a day trip, then I think it qualifies as a derby, and Charlotte would qualify as such in my book. Rivalry, derby, Clasico, whatever you want to call it, it's going to be bigger than your average match, and that's a good thing. Very, very good thing.
Kefsey wants to know how likely is it that Queen City is available as a part of Charlotte's name/logo, assuming Cincy would have opinions on it but don't have a trademark. A friend of mine in Greensboro wanted QCFC and the Hornets teal and purple. Looked like teal and blue was in attendance. Hashtag Well Past Wednesday.
Oh, you're not going to go with Hornets teal and purple with the owner owning the Panthers. I think if you're going off of color palettes, you're going to go off the Panthers color palette. Everything was black and white, and Tafka pointed out that you don't have just a true black and white team in the league. Is that what they do, or do they add a little bit of that midnight blue or whatever the Panthers blue is to it as a compliment? Maybe. I saw some people get bent out of shape about people wearing Panthers or Hornets stuff, especially Panther stuff, to the announcement. So, cool. They're fans of Charlotte and fans of Carolina, and that's not a bad thing. And they don't. I'd rather see that than wearing like a Barcelona jersey. Because you're a fan of the city. And I think that's where soccer's gotten to now, is that if you're a fan of sports in a city, you're going to get on board with the soccer team. That's what we've seen here in Atlanta. And that's what needs to happen more. It needs to not be a closed shop of, do you know what El Clasico is? Oh, you don't? Well, you can't sit with us. No, let's get away from that. People show up in a Luke Kuechly jersey because they're a big Carolina sports fan and big Charlotte sports fan, and they love the Panthers, and the Panthers owner is going into soccer, and he says it's cool, so we're on board. Isn't that what we want? Isn't that a good thing? I think it is. I want to see more of it. So if you have that crossover, that's cool, and that's where you get back to a name like Queen City FC. Would that work in a broad mainstream sports sense? I think it has far more success of working today in 2019 going into 2020 than it would have 5 years ago. I don't know if it's the best way to go forward, though. I'm not sure. I honestly, the more I hear it and the more I think about it, I really do like the Charlotte town idea.
Yeah, I do too.
I kind of like where you can go with that. But if you went with something like a Queen City FC, I would just wonder about how it would cross over the mainstream. It's hard to judge it today. 5 years ago, I would have said, no way. There's no way that works. It's too foreign. It's too different. It's not how American sports teams are named, so people aren't going to get on board. But that conversation's really changed. So maybe they would now. I don't know. I don't think that's where they're going to go, though. I'm not expecting that. I do think it'll be something Charlotte or Carolina involved, and Charlotte Town was the early reporting, and we'll see if that's what it is. But Tepper and Glick have both said a lot yesterday that the fans are going to be involved in it and have a voice in this. So it doesn't sound like anything has been completely decided as of yet.
For the record, the Carolina Panthers colors are Carolina blue, black, and silver. So for me, I would anticipate something in those three for Charlotte Town.
Carolina blue, huh?
Yeah.
There's a school up in Chapel Hill that
might have issues with that. Yeah.
Yeah. It's not the same Carolina blue that I would associate with a name called Carolina blue, but okay.
James McClatchy, last one on the board for Twitters. Going forward, how will the teams with stadiums holding 20,000 fans or less be able to compete with teams with large stadiums, Atlanta, Charlotte, Seattle, etc.? The salary cap is headed up, and the TV money can't make up the difference as of yet.
It's a good point. And it's something that Darren Eales has talked about many times as he's spoken internationally about MLS. It's a good thing in a lot of ways. You'd love to have that TV money. You'd love to have that stupid pot of TV money that the Premier League clubs have that give them the ability to go out and do things. That's wonderful if you have it. If you don't, you don't. So what's going to be the other large divider of teams and how much they make? Attendance, tickets, flat out cash coming in the door. And when you have teams that are in 20,000 seat venues and you have teams that are drawing 50,000 plus, well, those revenue numbers are going to look wildly different. So I do think that's going to be an issue. And I think that's why MLS has changed their approach at the top level a little bit about playing in bigger venues. You know, Arthur Blank had to basically convince Don Garber that it was going to work, and he did. Seattle did it, and there was always that talk about, well, the Sounders need to build their own place. They need to build a 20,000-seat stadium. They need to build a 25,000-seat stadium. Why would you? Why would you? CenturyLink works. Everybody freaked out about Detroit when it was wanting to do Ford Field. Like, you can't do that. You can't do that. Even MLS was like, you can't do that. You can't do that. Why not? If that's where you can make the soccer experience good, because it has to be, but you can sell more tickets and bring in more people, let's stop being afraid of that being a possibility. Now Nashville's going to be a test, and Nashville's going to have to bridge the gap playing at Nissan for a couple of years. It is temporary, but yeah, you've got to make it work and look good. Soldier Field. Chicago needed to do it. Now, how are they going to make it be successful? It's a test. But I think it's a good thing to challenge these notions of soccer needs to be in a small venue. Why? And then the flip side is also stop getting worked up about at empty seats pics on Twitter. So what? Somebody wants to base their whole idea of sports about pointing and laughing at things. Go ahead. If you are Nashville, and how much is a Nissan seat? 60,000, 65,000, something like that. If you have an average of 20,000 people next season, we don't need the exact number. It doesn't matter. It's just an idea. So if you have 20,000 people at Nashville SC games next year, and somebody wants to take pictures of empty seats and say, ha, 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 see, it doesn't work. You still had 20,000 seats, and you still had 20,000 people in the building. And did they have a good experience? That's what's important. Did it work? Yeah. You're building a stadium that's going to seat 30? Okay, cool. Why is that a bad thing? Is there an empty seats pics MX account? I don't think so. Nope. Because I don't think they really care if Club America draws 50,000 at the 85,000 seat Estadio Azteca for a couple games against opponents that don't really get the juices flowing, or the team's really bad or whatever. I don't think they start with it's never going to work. It's so bad. No, because you don't judge it on one game. You don't judge it on any of that. You judge it overall in the big picture of things. So that happens. Yeah, you got to draw more next time. You got to put a better product on the field. Got to engage with your community. But you need to be in bigger venues to do it, because that perception is the number one thing right now. That's what's changed faster than anything in American soccer, and maybe in the most surprising way. And it really hit me yesterday looking at so many pictures out of Charlotte and seeing people in Panthers jerseys. That's awesome. That's good. Because they don't have Charlotte MLS jerseys to buy yet. So, okay. What are they going to wear to represent their city? Panthers jerseys. These are not the smaller number, because, look, the soccer fan base, if you're talking about fans who are just fans of soccer and that's all they're fans of and they don't care about other sports, if that's it, if that's the only people you're trying to draw, you're dealing with a smaller number. If you brought it out and say, you know what, we want to draw everybody. If you go to events outside of your house, we want you to come buy a ticket to this because we're going to give you an experience that's going to make you want to come back. That's cool. That's good. And I think the perception of the sport in the United States has been the biggest change in the last 5 years. And I'll go back to where it felt like it really started to transition for me. The build-up to the 2010 World Cup got some of it, and it felt like it was on the cusp of it. The Landon Donovan goal, that was a big watershed moment, because what did you see? What was the goal? It gets you to the knockout rounds. It's a big goal and a big moment. It's amazing visuals. It's an amazing call in English and Spanish. Andres Cantor's call was unbelievable. Ian Dark's call was unbelievable. Both were great. But then what was the next thing that spread through the sports world, not just the soccer world, but through the sports world about that goal? The reaction videos. The reaction videos of, look at this huge crowd in Kansas City, go nuts. Look at this huge crowd in Los Angeles, go nuts. Look at this huge crowd in New York, go nuts. And if you are a longtime NFL fan, a longtime baseball fan, a longtime basketball fan, longtime hockey fan, and you see that, you've never really given soccer its due, and you're seeing this huge outdoor celebration in Kansas City and people going insane about this goal, doesn't that make you want to be a part of it? Doesn't that change your perception? Like, oh, wait a minute, this is a big deal. This isn't like a bunch of people watching it in a pub that I didn't know about, that I don't go to, getting excited about something. This is downtown at a large outdoor viewing party. This is big. If it's big, I need to be part of it. I think that kick-started it. You know, you had the Women's World Cup the next year. You had the Olympics. You had the great run from the women in both of those competitions. You had the 2014 World Cup that felt night and day. It felt like we were talking about something different. The lead up, talking to people about 2010 going into it, and then talking to people about 2014 going into it, the excitement level didn't even feel like we were talking about the same sport. So now you're at a point, you take all of that, you take the national team side of it, you take that excitement, and then you bring it to the club level, and you bring it to an Atlanta United, and you bring it to now Charlotte, and you continue to ramp it up in a city like Seattle and Portland, and you have these things grow. It is more accepted. The sport of soccer is more accepted in this country than it's ever been. Does that mean it's universal? No. You still get numpties on SportsCenter with little crass remarks after coming out of a soccer game. They're probably not going to be there all that much longer, because it's not going to be able to be a successful way to present yourself if you continue to do that anymore. Because it's changed. And people wearing Panthers jerseys at the announcement yesterday, I think, is a symbol of that. And it's a good symbol. It's not a bad symbol. It's a good thing. To continue to grow, to continue to sell more tickets, to continue to have more people watch on TV, to continue to bring more money into the game, for clubs to then go and say, you're a top player in Liga MX, you're the Golden Boot winner, you're one of the best number 10s, we're going to pay you more money to come north and play for us. No, it's not Atlanta. It's not Los Angeles. It's Vancouver. It's Kansas City. It's Columbus, Ohio. You need more people to spend more money on this game for it to continue to grow. The more people are going to come from people who maybe didn't care about soccer 10 years ago. And it's okay that they didn't, because they do now, and they're spending their money on it, and they're spending their time and their passion on it, and that's growth. I get very frustrated with gatekeeping when it comes to the sport, because if it's going to be what we all hope it's going to be, we need more people at the party. I don't like private exclusive parties. Make it big. Make it a big deal. Make it exciting, and let's have some fun with this. And I think Charlotte, David Tepper is going to have a lot of fun with this, and the Charlotte fan base is going to have a lot of fun with this, and they're going to be a great addition to this league, and I think they are going to surprise people. And if those deposit numbers are accurate and they are on pace or ahead of what Atlanta did in 2014, they should be, but that also means they're going to be a heavyweight, and that's great. We need more heavyweights in this league, because now we're starting to see the teams that weren't heavyweights starting to spend like heavyweights did a few years ago puts more pressure on the heavyweights to go even higher and continue to push even further. And that was the number one thing out of Glick and Tepper yesterday, is we love what Atlanta's done. We've learned a lot from what Atlanta's done, but you know what? We want to be even bigger. That's awesome. Everybody should be thinking that. Every club in the league should be thinking that.
Sounds like a show.
Yeah, it happens sometimes. We do these things.
Yeah. And tomorrow we will do yet another one, but you have stuff at 92.9 The Game with Mike later this afternoon.
Yes, and Jimmy Vance and Mena, the stoppage time final edition of 2019 will be live at 2 o'clock on Facebook.com/929 The Game. You can send in any questions that we did not get to, any questions that you might have thought of as you listen to this, if you listen to it before 2 o'clock. And if you have any questions for us on a Thursday Thoughts edition of the show, go ahead and throw them our way. I do want to get into something that we've had on our list all week, a little bit of an idea about what would you change to the laws of the game to make it better. Now that we have VAR, now that we've seen how VAR has affected it, now that we're starting to get past the yelling and screaming and stomping of our feet stage about VAR.
Gnashing of teeth?
That happened a long time ago. What would you do differently? How would it be different for you? What law change would you propose? Let's try to come up with some practical things to do about offside, about handball, about all kinds of different things in the game. What would you want to see change? Let's get into it. Also, we'll get into some of the other rumors around the league. The biggest one to keep an eye on today, because this is getting some quick traction, ESPN in Mexico is reporting it now. Lucas Zelarayan from Tigres, one of the top number 10s in Liga MX, Argentine, 27 years old. Valued, according to Transfermarkt, at $4.5 million. You're getting reports that a deal is done with the Columbus Crew, and some reports have had that deal as high as $9 million. It's the Columbus Crew spending that. You've also got potentially a Brazilian center back, Antonio Carlos, coming to Orlando on loan. That's being reported by Globo Esporte. And William Yarbrough, who we mentioned earlier this week at Club León, getting passed up at León. He's become the backup there. It looks like they're trying to get younger. Houston could be in the mix. And Houston has a number 1 shirt that is open with Joe Willis heading to Nashville. Luciano Acosta as well could be on the move to teams in the Western Conference. And they'd have to trade DC for his rights because DC made an offer with him out of contract. So is that complicated? We'll have to find out. It's going to be interesting, but a lot of big stuff today. So your timeline today, we've got stoppage time at 2. You've got Monterrey and Liverpool Club World Cup semifinal at 12:30. It's on FS2. It's on Fox Deportes. You've got El Clasico at 2:45, I think is the kick. All the pregame will start very early on BN Sports, on Fanatis, on Fubo TV, on whatever your streaming service is that has BN Sports. You've got other games as well. It's a big day. Get on Prize Picks. Make your picks. Use the SDH code to get you some extra bonus stuff. And we'll be back tomorrow to talk about all of it.
What he said. Enjoy stoppage time.
I got to ask you one more.
What?
So, born on this day in music. DMX.
Okay.
What's your favorite DMX song, John?
Don't have one.
Do you know who DMX is, John?
I do, but I don't listen.
What do you know about DMX?
Isn't that the bike that you ride over dirt?
That's BMX.
Whoop-de-doos?
No, that's BMX. DMX.
Not a lot.
What's the first thing that comes to mind when you think about DMX and music?
It's hip-hop. It's rap.
This is true. That's all you got?
That's all I got.
Not even going to get the barking side of it?
Mm-mm.
Growling and barking?
Nope.
He did a lot of that? No?
Okay. Well, good for D.
Okay. No, don't call him D. Call him X. He's X, not D. Not D.
Mr. X?
No, just DMX.
Okay.
Maybe Mr. DMX. You might need to call him Mr. DMX.
Probably. That's. I will not dispute that. So yes, Mr. DMX. I know he has a library that is quite expansive and very popular. I could not recall one of his tunes.
Oh man, so sad. Slippin' is a great one.
With an apostrophe, Slippin'?
Yes. Yes,
Okay.
Slippin' would be my DMX song of choice for you to go check out. Your favorite, another birthday on this day, Christina Aguilera. What's your favorite Christina Aguilera song?
Don't really like Ex-Tina.
You don't like DMX, you don't like Christina Aguilera. Okay.
No, I don't know Mr. DMX. Christina Aguilera, I will say this. When she goes on Fallon and does Wheel of Musical Impressions, she's tremendous. But for me, I don't listen to Ex-Tina, no.
The Ex-Tina thing was like a year or so, about 15 years ago. Nobody calls her that anymore. It's like Hotlanta. It's don't
Miss
do it.
Aguilera. I don't listen to her music either.
All right, let me try one more. Another birthday on this day. Keith Richards, what's your favorite Rolling Stone song?
I have several, but I also like his work with the Expensive Winos. The live album at the Palladium is a must if you enjoy live music.
I love that. DMX, I don't know anything. Christina Aguilera, I don't like Christina Aguilera. Keith Richards, you're going like deep into the vaults of Keith Richards and pulling out side projects.
Mm-hmm.
Love it. So what's your favorite Rolling Stone song? Just your first one
Mr.
off
AOR.
the cuff. What's your favorite Rolling Stone song? Don't give me the I have several. Off the cuff today, you're going to pull up a Rolling Stone song when we finish. What song are you playing?
Sympathy. It's probably Sympathy.
Okay. I'll go Beast of Burden.
Okay.
And I'll go Slippin' on DMX, and I will go Come On Over from Christina Aguilera.
Okay.
I'm not going deep on Christina Aguilera, but I'll go Come On Over because that was a fun pop song. All right. There's your musical diversion for the day. If you want to listen to any of those songs, go to Spotify or Napster or whatever you do and listen to your music. And we'll be back tomorrow to talk more about soccer and maybe a little bit about music and probably a little bit of wrestling talk as well because these things happen on SDH. Thanks for listening. Mucha platio.
Mucha platio.